Police say they found bloodstains, women's lingerie, hair from a wig consistent with one Dacara Thompson wore, and a fingernail that matches one missing from Thompson's hand. An autopsy reveals she had skull and facial fractures.
In Anne Arundel County for the report of a disabled vehicle. Upon arrival, troopers observed a female lying unresponsive in a grassy area.
This could happen next door to my house, in my neighborhood. Like, my wife sits regularly in between the two houses.
I want my baby back. I just simply want my daughter back.
"3 a.m. August 23, 2025, Hyattsville, Maryland. The quiet parking lot suddenly became a bright spot in the security camera frame. A young woman in a bright shirt stepped out of a white SUV, looking both confident and hurried. She crossed the empty concrete, heading toward a black GMC Yukon that was idling, its headlights illuminating the night. The driver rolled down the window and a brief conversation ensued. A few seconds later, the passenger door opened. The girl paused for a moment, then got into the car. That was the last moment the camera captured her image. That girl is Dacara Thompson, 19 years old, just closed an important chapter of her life after graduating from high school. Friends describe her as an open-minded person, always wanting to contribute to the community. The most obvious evidence is participating in a local service program in Maryland. With the dream of becoming a real estate agent, Dacara had mapped out a promising future path for herself. However, in just a split second of that morning, all those plans seemed to stop. The big question for the entire community is, what happened after the Yukon's doors closed? Why did a girl on a journey to build her dream disappear right in the place she was attached to? These mysteries are the beginning of a story that has left the entire city in turmoil. On the evening of August 22, 2025, the atmosphere in Lanham, Maryland, was as peaceful as ever. In her father's small house, Dacara Thompson announced that she was going out to get gas. Those seemingly simple words became the last words her family heard. Her white SUV left the familiar street, quietly driving off into the night, carrying with it plans and dreams that had yet to take shape. Hours later, the car showed up in Hyattsville, miles from the family home. Surveillance cameras showed Dacara stopping in a parking lot and getting out with a determined look. She locked the door carefully, as if she expected to return in a few minutes. But instead, she headed straight for a waiting black GMC Yukon. The headlights were on, the engine was running, and inside the cabin was a man known to the local community. The man was identified as Hugo Hernandez Mendez, 35, a Bowie resident. Hugo, originally from Guatemala, was known to be a frequent driver of the Yukon. What happened after Dacara opened the door and got into the car has become the murkiest part of the story. There was no other video, no trace of her leaving on her own 2 feet. That night passed in suspicious silence. Near dawn on August 23, at the boarding house where Hugo rented a room, several neighbors said they heard unusual sounds coming from the room. They heard scattered noises, mixed with heavy breathing, and then everything fell silent. None of them saw Dacara leave the room. No one knew that this was when the story took a turn that would never return. By the morning of August 23, Dakara's absence was clear. She had not returned home, had not contacted her father, and had not appeared at any of her usual locations. The white SUV remained parked in Hyattsville, while the 19-year-old seemed to have disappeared from everyday life. For those who loved her, the wait quickly turned to anxiety, and for the community, the camera footage was the last sign of Dakara's presence. 8 days after Dacara Thompson left her home and failed to return, the atmosphere in Lanham and Hyattsville was as tense as ever. Family, friends, and police conducted searches, combing suspicious areas, checking parking lots, hospitals, and riverside areas. Each day was filled with anxious waiting, mixed with the fragile hope that the young woman would reappear safe. On the morning of August 31, 2025, a state trooper was dispatched to the South River Bridge on Highway 50 near Annapolis to deal with a broken-down vehicle. When he finished, he leaned against the bridge railing, his gaze casually cast down to the river below. In the pale morning light, an object floating on the water caught his attention. At first, the police officer thought it was just a mannequin thrown into the river, which had happened many times in this area. But upon closer inspection, he had a hunch that this was more than an inanimate object. He immediately reported and, along with support units, approached the scene by the river. As he got closer, the truth gradually became clear. It was the body of a young woman. The current carried the body to the rocky area under the bridge, where the canopy had made it difficult to detect for days before. The entire area was quickly cordoned off, and Maryland state investigators were called in to conduct the initial investigation. The news was immediately sent back to the command center. Within hours, representatives of the Dacara family were contacted to prepare for the formal identification process. For them, the past 8 long days had been a time of hope and despair, but few expected the end to come so suddenly and painfully. As investigators began to gather information at the scene, they quickly determined that the location where the body was found did not match the last recorded footage of Dacara. This raised a big question. What really happened to the young woman between the night of August 22 and the morning of August 23 and the morning of August 31? The discovery of the body in the South River not only marked a turning point in the search, but also initiated a new phase in the case. From here, the police and Dacara's family had to face a reality of loss, and at the same time began the journey to find the truth after 8 days in the dark. Despite 8 days in the wild, the remaining traces were enough to confirm that she was Dacara Thompson, the young woman who had been missing since the early morning of August 23. The results of the examination showed that Dacara's skull and facial bone structure had multiple fractures, and her body showed signs of being severely impacted before falling into the river. Combined with the location of the discovery under the bridge, experts confirmed that this was not an accidental fall. With a height of nearly 9 meters from the bridge to the water surface, the body's fall was just the final consequence of a series of events that had occurred before. While forensic experts were conducting their analysis, the investigation team also searched Hugo Hernandez Mendez's Bowie residence. In this rented room, police recorded several important traces: a discolored stain suspected to be dried blood on the mattress, a hair in the trash can that matched Dacara's sample, and several other personal details of unknown ownership. All were seized and carefully sealed for forensic examination. The forensic results gradually pieced together a clear picture. Dacara had suffered a serious incident in the room at Bowie before being taken elsewhere. Traces at the scene and on her body eliminated the possibility of this being an accident. From that initial conclusion, the case file officially changed from a missing person search to a criminal investigation, opening a major turning point on the path to finding justice for the 19-year-old girl. After Dacara Thompson's body was found under the Route 50 bridge on August 31, 2025, the entire case was immediately reoriented from a missing person search to a criminal investigation. Maryland State Police and the Prince George's County Prosecutor's Office began combing through all available data from surveillance cameras, witness statements, and evidence seized at the scene. The goal was to identify the person responsible for the 19-year-old's disappearance and death. The first key piece of data comes from surveillance camera footage in Hyattsville. At 3 a.m. on August 23, Dacara was recorded leaving his white SUV and heading toward a black GMC Yukon. The license plate number of the car was enlarged and verified to match the vehicle regularly driven by Hugo Hernandez Mendez, 35, of Bowie. This was the key point that quickly made Hernandez Mendez the prime suspect. As police investigated Hernandez Mendez's whereabouts, his roommate provided key information. She said she heard strange noises coming from Hugo's room in the early hours of August 23, a rapid sound that lasted for a short period of time, then fell silent. Although she didn't see anyone enter or leave, her testimony helped confirm that something was amiss in that room the night Dacara disappeared. On September 1, an official search warrant was issued. When investigators entered the Bowie room, they found several suspicious items: dried blood on the mattress, long hair and broken fingernails in the trash can, and several personal items believed not to belong to the room's owner. All the evidence was sealed and sent to the lab for testing. The DNA analysis quickly yielded an undeniable conclusion. Hair and blood samples collected from the room matched Dacara's biological profile. This was direct forensic evidence, confirming the young woman's presence in Hernandez Mendez's room before her body was found in the South River. On September 2, Hernandez Mendez was taken to the police station for questioning. When asked why Dacara showed up in his car and then disappeared without a trace, he could not give a reasonable answer. His inconsistent and fragmented explanations further led investigators to believe he was the last person to have contact with the victim. In addition, Hernandez Mendez had no alibi for the crucial time frame between 3 a.m. and the early hours of August 23. From the objective data chain, the preliminary investigation file concluded. After leaving the white SUV in Hyattsville, Dacara voluntarily entered Hernandez Mendez's Yukon. The two returned to the motel in Bowie, where forensic evidence indicated she suffered a serious incident in her motel room. Dacara's body was then removed from the room and taken to the Route 50 bridge, where it was discovered 8 days later. On September 3, 2025, just 2 days after collecting all the forensic evidence, Maryland police officially arrested Hugo Hernandez Mendez. The Prince George's County prosecutor announced that he would face 2 charges: first-degree murder and second-degree murder. The charging documents state that camera footage, witness testimony, and DNA evidence all pointed to Hernandez Mendez as the perpetrator.
Probable cause to present charges for the murder of Dacara Thompson. This morning, criminal charges were issued for first-degree and second-degree murder. The facts of the case: 19-year-old Dacara Thompson was last seen on August the 22nd. She was reported missing the very next day. On August the 21st, her family located the vehicle in the area of Jasmine Terrace in Hyattsville, Maryland.
The fact that the suspect was identified so quickly, just days after the body was found, was considered a remarkable achievement by the investigative team. It not only reflected the coordination between the police, forensics, and prosecutors, but also sent a strong message to the community. The case would not be forgotten, and justice would be served. By mid-September, a preliminary investigation report was completed, confirming that Dacara Thompson had suffered a serious incident in her Bowie motel room before her body was taken to the Route 50 bridge, where it was discovered 8 days later. The case had gone from a mysterious disappearance to a serious criminal case, marking a significant turning point in the legal journey to bring justice to an ambitious young woman. In his presentation on September 6, 2025, the prosecutor emphasized that the case was not just about the death of a 19-year-old girl, but also a reflection of a flaw in the legal system. Records showed that Hernandez Mendez had been arrested multiple times for drunk driving, but received only light sentences and no lengthy jail time. If the system had been more strict, the prosecutor said, this tragedy would not have happened. On September 10, the trial officially opened. The courtroom was packed with family, friends, press, and many local residents, as the Dacara Thompson case had been the focus of more than 2 weeks. When photos of her, bright in her office uniform, smiling on graduation day, appeared on the screen, the room fell silent. The image contrasted with the investigative file, underscored the loss not only to her family but also to the entire community. Hernandez Mendez's defense attorney tried to argue that no eyewitnesses saw him commit the attack, but the prosecution repeatedly pointed to the consistency of the DNA evidence, the roommate's testimony, and the surveillance footage, all of which connected in a logical sequence, eliminating any possibility of an alibi. By September 15, 2025, the judge determined the evidence was strong enough to send the case to a full jury trial. The process is expected to last several weeks, with dozens of witnesses, forensic experts, and police investigators called to testify. There is particular public interest in what sentence Hernandez Mendez could face. First-degree murder carries a maximum sentence of life in prison without parole. Second-degree murder carries a lesser but still serious penalty. Prosecutors say they will pursue the maximum sentence as a warning to repeat offenders. During the subsequent hearings, Dacara's family sat in the front row. Relatives said their presence in court was not only to witness, but also to protect the young woman's final say. They wanted to ensure that Dacara Thompson's name would not only be in the pages of newspapers, but would also be remembered as a reminder of justice. As of late September 2025, the trial is still ongoing. Local media are reporting every detail, and the public is anxiously awaiting the final verdict. A life sentence without parole is considered the most likely outcome, but all that remains to be seen is the jury's verdict. The Dacara Thompson case has become more than just a criminal record. It has become a social focus, raising the question, what can the legal system do to prevent similar tragedies? And is justice for a 19-year-old girl strong enough to fill the painful void she left behind? Dacara's death was not only a personal loss for her family, but also a shock to the entire community. At 19, she was on the threshold of adulthood, carrying many dreams and aspirations. Her departure left an unfillable void in the hearts of her family and friends, and for Maryland, it was also the loss of a young face that Governor Wes Moore once called the light of a new generation. Questions continue to be asked. Is the legal system strong enough to prevent someone from reoffending? Why were early warnings ignored, leading to an irreversible tragedy? Dacara's story is also a poignant reminder. We all have a role to play in creating safer communities, from personal vigilance to urging authorities to take decisive action when we see a threat. That responsibility lies not just with the victim's family or the police, but with society as a whole. Dacara is gone, but her story remains, a wake-up call about the value of life and the importance of justice. If it were you, what do you think needs to change in society so that these mistakes are never repeated?